Hi there, thanks for joining us at Beyond the Park. My name's Adam Yaris, and together we are going to be looking through the entire series of Parks and Recreation, episode by episode, charting the highlights, taking a look at the lowlights, and everything in between, all the while looking for meaning beyond the park. Today we're going to be starting with Season 1, Episode 1, and this is of course called the obvious, The Pilot. Now, I love this episode because this is where we start getting introduced to all the characters and all that's happening in Pawnee, Indiana, the location of this great TV show. Let's dive in. Now, this series starts off, of course, with Leslie Knope just doing her job. She is making sure that the local parks are cleaned out. But her life doesn't stop there, even though her job is to talk to 5-year-olds and apparently also clear out drunks from slides. Her next spot is going to this public forum. Now, this forum is dedicated simply to making sure that every person's complaint is heard. It's a terrible job, but she's accompanied by her trusty friend, Tom Haverford. So they go to this meeting and everybody is yelling at them, complaining to them. Nobody is enjoying themselves, except apparently Leslie, who's just ready to take it all in. Eventually, though, we get to meet this person called Ann Perkins. Now, this is a big moment, because Leslie is about to meet her best friend who is gonna be with her forever throughout the series. It is huge. So Anne tells Leslie that there is a big problem. There is a pit right next to her house, and not only is it ugly and dangerous, but her boyfriend, one Andy Dwyer, has actually fallen into the pit and broken both of his legs. Leslie is mortified. So she says, I'm coming out to the pit to take a look around. Here she meets Andy. She even passes him his itch stick, this just giant scratcher so he could go down in his cast. It's kind of gross. She checks out the pit, even falls in the pit and hurts herself, and realizes this has got to be solved. So after some refreshing pancakes, Leslie goes to her boss, Ron Swanson, and starts asking, hey, I want to try to turn this pit, this abandoned lot, and turn it into a park. Ron says no. No questions asked. There is no way you're going to do this, Leslie. Leslie, on the opposite side, fights for it. She even gets her friend Mark Brandanowitz to make a reaching out moment to Ron, who eventually gives her this opportunity, even though he thinks she will fail. The episode, of course, ends in everybody having a party and a wonderful time. And that's a quick recap of the episode. Now, as we take a look throughout the rest of this, we've got to talk about the best line of the episode. Now, the episode is a masterpiece itself. It starts off in a different way than the rest of the series will go on, to be fair, but it is a killer kickoff episode. But there is one line throughout this entire episode that is the best. Take a look with me here. It comes from Ron Swanson right in the middle of the episode, and we get a clue about how he really feels about his job. He says, I don't want this parks department to build any parks because I don't believe in government. I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money. Now that clues us into something big about Ron's character throughout the entire series. We're going to see him be an ardent libertarian. That's a person who doesn't really believe that government should even really exist on the whole throughout this whole series. And the funny part here is that Ron has worked very hard to get to this spot in his job. And above all of it, he doesn't believe in it. He doesn't want anybody else to even have his job, because if somebody else has his job, they'll start spending money on building things. He's viewing his role as stopping all progress within the government. It is hilarious. Now, our next segment is talking about a few quick observations. 2 things stood out to us in this episode. I keep putting up 4, but it's actually 2. 2 things stood out to us in this episode. First, this is the first hint of Leslie Knope and her love of breakfast food. And throughout our series, we are going to be tracking Leslie's food choices. But one of the constant themes throughout all of Parks and Recreation is that Leslie loves breakfast food. In particular, waffles. But today we also find out she loves pancakes. At 14 minutes 50 seconds, we see Andy ask Anne to make him some pancakes. And Leslie, even though she's not in a great place, says, ooh, I want some too. I want some too. And Anne kind of rolls her eyes and says, okay, I'm gonna go make them as a quick snack. First of all, pancakes are not that quick to make, but we get to see that Leslie loves breakfast food. Second thing that we get to see is this beautiful moment where April Ludgate meets Andy Dwyer, and we start seeing the first beginnings of a small relationship. Granted, there's nothing really there, but we see how these two interact. Of course, with their highlight moment of being Leslie passing Andy his itch stick. It's beautiful, it's poignant, but their love is still ready to blossom. Now those are our two quick observations. Now let's take a moment to go beyond the park. You know what I love about this episode? I love that we get to see Leslie following her passions, following her purposes. There are many things we could say about Leslie Knope throughout this whole series, but she is a woman, a hero in this series, who is passionate and purpose-filled about everything she does, even when people reject her. And one of the constant themes throughout all of Parks and Recreation is Pawnee rejecting the person that loves it perhaps more than anyone else. Even when people are yelling at her, Leslie knows what she's about and how she's going to help the town. In fact, we see her say, right in the middle of the town hall meeting, this public forum meeting, she says a powerful statement about how she views people even yelling at her. Leslie says, "So what I hear when I'm being yelled at is people caring loudly at me." Now that's crazy when I hear somebody say something like that. There's no way I could think people yelling at me like this, how she's enduring it, is people really loving me. I'd be saying these people hate me. Forget you guys. I want to get out of this death trap of a town and go over to Eagleton next door. I don't want to deal with your raccoon invasions or your pollution or any of these things. But Leslie is in it to win it. She feels called and filled with purpose towards this town. Now, not everybody has that sense of purpose like she does. In fact, this job we know could beat people down. Mark Brandanowitz put it simply like this: government work can beat you down. I would say that I lost my optimism about government in about 2 months. Leslie has kept hers for 6 years. Even when the world is caring loudly at her, Leslie has a purpose. And that moment here takes us beyond the park. You see, Leslie has something called vocation in her life. Now, what is that word vocation? Vocation is a sense of deeper purpose, a calling, kind of this intuition about work that you do, that it's not just a job, but it's something that you are meant to do, something that you are born to do, like your life is being partially fulfilled in this. It's not the sole thing that gives you purpose, but you are created for this work. And whenever I see this episode, I get so jealous about Leslie right here, because I often wish that my life was as clearly mapped out as hers, that I had as much meaning and purpose on a day-to-day life, that I had such a deep sense of vocation about everything I do. I wish that I did. We all want to know if our life has a deeper meaning and purpose beyond just maybe getting married or having kids or working at Chuck E. Cheese like Ron, or maybe even treating ourselves like we'll find out later in this series. We're all looking for that meaning and purpose. And that's where I think we have a deeper moment, a moment beyond the park. Because a powerful man, a man named Jesus, once said it like this. He talked about his purpose and his vocation. He said his job was to seek and save the lost. Now that's a pretty powerful statement from Jesus, because when Jesus talks, he is a person that is filled with passion, filled with purpose, filled with vocation. And he said his mission was to help people who were lost, who didn't know what they were doing. People like us. People searching for their vocations, people searching for purpose, people searching for something more. He said his help was to help those that were looking, that were in need. And the reality is we all are. Maybe we have one area of our life figured out over here or one area over here, but there's so many unanswered questions. We're looking for meaning and purpose, and Jesus says he can help us with that. How? Well, he makes it clear. The way that we find our purpose isn't by just finding a mission. The way that we find purpose is to first tie into the one who gives us purpose. It's looking at God who gives us great meaning and purpose in life. Today, wherever you are, we have an opportunity to dial in and look to our purpose giver. And once we find him, once we explore the meaning of having a purpose giver, of having something more in our life than just ourselves, it seems to be from Jesus that we'll find out how we can instead get a brand new mission, a new vocation, something that's not temporary, but something that will last and give us meaning for our entire lives and beyond. Our lives are all about looking and finding, receiving, and responding to our purpose giver. That's our moment today, Beyond the Park. And that's it for Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot. Next episode, we're going to be taking a look at Season 1, Episode 2, Canvassing. In the meantime, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Park. See you later.